Mesrop Mashtots was an early medieval Armenian linguist, theologian, statesman and hymnologist. He is best known for having invented the Armenian alphabet c. 405 AD, which was a fundamental step in strengthening Armenian national identity. He was also, according to a number of scholars and contemporaneous Armenian sources, the creator of the Caucasian Albanian and Georgian alphabets. Life. Mesrop Mashtots was born in a noble family in the settlement of Hatsakats in Tehran and died in Vavhashipat. He was the son of a man named Vardan Korun. His pupil and biographer tells us that Mashtots received a liberal education and was versed in the Greek and Persian languages. On account of his piety and learning, Mesrop was appointed secretary to King Khosrow IV. His duty was to write in Greek and Persian characters the decrees and edicts of the sovereign. Leaving the court for the service of God, he took holy orders, and withdrew to a monastery with a few chosen companions. There, says Korun, he practiced great austerities, enduring hunger and thirst, cold and poverty. He lived on vegetables, wore a hair shirt, slept upon the ground, and often spent whole nights in prayer and the study of the Holy Scriptures. This life he continued for a few years. Armenia, so long the battleground of Romans and Persians, lost its independence in 387, and was divided between the Byzantine Empire and Persia, about 4/5 being given to the latter. Western Armenia was governed by Byzantine generals, while an Armenian king ruled, but only as feudatory, over Persian Armenia. The Church was naturally influenced by these violent political changes. Although the loss of civil independence and the partition of the land could not destroy its organization or subdue its spirit, persecution only quickened it into greater activity, and had the effect of bringing the clergy, the nobles, and the common people closer together. The principal events of this period are the invention of the Armenian alphabet, the revision of the liturgy, the creation of an ecclesiastical and national literature, and the readjustment of hierarchical relations. Three men are prominently associated with this work: Mesrop, Patriarch Isaac, and King Vramsippa, who succeeded his brother Khosrow IV in 389. In 394, with the help of blessing of Armenia's Catholicos, Sahak Partef, Mesrop set out on a mission of spreading the word of God to a pagan or semi-pagan people. Mesrop, as noted, had spent some time in a monastery preparing for a missionary life. With the support of Prince Shampith, he preached the gospel in the district of Gofdien near the river Araxes, converting many heretics and pagans. However, he experienced great difficulty in instructing the people, for the Armenians had no alphabet of their own, instead using Greek, Persian, and Syriac scripts, none of which were well suited for representing the many complex sounds of the native tongue. Again, the Holy Scriptures and the liturgy, being written in Syriac, were, to a large extent, unintelligible to the faithful. Hence the constant need of translators and interpreters to explain the word of God to the people. Mesrop, desirous to remedy this state of things, resolved to invent a national alphabet, in which undertaking Isaac and King Vramsippa promised to assist him. It is hard to determine exactly what part Mesrop had in the fixing of the new alphabet. According to his Armenian biographers, he consulted Daniel, a bishop of Mesopotamia, and Rufinus, a monk of Samosata, on the matter. With the help and that of Isaac and the king, he was able to give a definite form to the alphabet, which he probably adapted from the Greek. Others, like Lenormand, think it derived from the Avestan. Mesrop's alphabet consisted of 36 letters. 2 more were added in the 12th century. The first sentence in Armenian written down by Saint Mesrop after he invented the letters is said to be the opening line of Solomon's Book of Proverbs. The invention of the alphabet in 405 was the beginning of Armenian literature, and proved a powerful factor in the upbuilding of the national spirit. The result of the work of Isaac and Mesrop, says Street Martin, was to separate forever the Armenians from the other peoples of the East, to make of them a distinct nation, and to strengthen them in the Christian faith by forbidding or rendering profane all the foreign alphabetic scripts which were employed for transcribing the books of the heathens and of the followers of Zoroaster. To Mesrop we owe the preservation of the language and literature of Armenia. But for his work, the people would have been absorbed by the Persians and Syrians, and would have disappeared like so many nations of the East. Anxious that others should profit by his discovery, and encouraged by the patriarch and the king, Mesrop founded numerous schools in different parts of the country, in which the youth were taught the new alphabet. It is historically proven that St. Mesrop himself taught in Amara's monastery of Artsk, a region of Armenia. But his activity was not confined to eastern Armenia. Provided with letters from Isaac, he went to Constantinople and obtained from the Emperor Theodosius the Younger permission to preach and teach in his Armenian possessions. Having returned to eastern Armenia to report on his missions to the Patriarch, his first thought was to provide a religious literature for his countrymen. Having gathered around him numerous disciples, he sent some to Edessa, Constantinople, Athens, Antioch, Alexandria, and other centers of learning, to study the Greek language and bring back the masterpieces of Greek literature. The most famous of his pupils were John of Egaguiats, Joseph of Baghan, Yeznik Koru, and Moses of Korine, and John Mandakuni. The first monument of this Armenian literature is the version of the Holy Scriptures. Isaac, says Moses of Korine, made a translation of the Bible from the Syriac text about 411. This work must have been considered imperfect, for soon afterwards John of Egaguiats and Joseph of Baghan were sent to Edessa to translate the scriptures. They journeyed as far as Constantinople, and brought back with them authentic copies of the Greek text. With the help of other copies obtained from Alexandria, the Bible was translated again from the Greek according to the text of the Septuagint and Origen's Hexapla. This version, now in use in the Armenian Church, was completed about 434. The decrees of the first three councils, Nicaea, Constantinople, and Ephesus, and the national liturgy were also translated into Armenian, the latter being revised on the liturgy of St. Basil, though retaining characteristics of its own. Many works of the Greek fathers also passed into Armenian. The loss of the Greek originals has given some of these versions a special importance. Thus, the second part of Eusebius's chronicle, of which only a few fragments exist in the Greek, has been preserved entirely in Armenian. In the midst of his literary labors, Mesrop revisited the districts he had evangelized in his earlier years, and, after the death of Isaac in 440, looked after the spiritual administration of the Patriarchate. He survived his friend and master by only 6 months. The Armenians read his name in the canon of the Mass, and celebrate his memory on the 19th of February. St. Mashtots is buried at a chapel in Oshakan, a historical village 8 kilometers southwest from the town of Ashtarik. St. Mesrop is listed officially in the Roman Martyrology of the Roman Catholic Church. His feast day is February 17th. Honors. Virtually every town in Armenia has a street named after Mashtots. In Yerevan, Mashtots Street is one of the most important in the city center, which was previously known as Lenin Street. There is a statue to him at the Matenadaran, one at the church he was buried at in Oshakan village, and one at the monument to the alphabet found on the skirts of Mount Aragats north of Oanavan village. Stamps have been issued with his image by both the Soviet Union and by post-Soviet Armenia. Music. St. Mesrop also produced a number of liturgical compositions. Some of the works attributed to him are Mega Qez Voghormerins of Stvats, Ankanime Adgiqo, and Voghormer. Documentary films. Mashtots 1988 Armenian film 35mm. Film director Levon Mkarchian Artashes Martrosyan.